Michael Jackson, the king of pop. I mean, it's a title we've all heard a million times, right? But what does that really mean? So today we're going to try and deconstruct that whole phenomenon. Using data, historical records, we're going to try to understand the incredible, multifaceted, and complex cultural impact of one of the most famous people to ever live. Let's dive in.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. First up, we'll try to just establish the sheer mind-boggling scale of his fame. Then, we'll look at how he completely shattered racial barriers in the music industry. After that, we'll get into how he revolutionized pop music visually, how we see it. From there, we'll track his truly unprecedented global reach. And finally, we have to talk about his complex and, let's be honest, often polarizing legacy. So to really kick things off, let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale of his influence. When the National Portrait Gallery in London put together this huge exhibition on art inspired by him, this is what the curators said. Think about that. Not the most depicted musician, not even the most depicted celebrity, but the most depicted cultural figure, period. That puts him up there with historical giants and religious icons. He was a muse for everyone from Andy Warhol to Kehinde Wiley. It's just incredible. And if you want to put a number on it, just look at this, 8.7 billion. That's the estimated grand total of viewers for all his major TV appearances combined. We're talking music videos, the Super Bowl, his memorial service, everything. That's a number that's almost hard to process, isn't it? It represents a global audience that was just unparalleled. So, you gotta ask, how did anyone achieve that kind of reach? Well, a huge part of it was that Michael Jackson didn't just play the game, he literally changed the rules of the game, especially when it came to race and radio.
It's kind of hard to imagine now, but before Thriller, the music world in America was, well, it was really segregated. Radio stations kept Black artists in their own genre boxes, off of pop radio. And the new big thing, MTV, they almost never played Black artists. But the success of Thriller was so massive, so undeniable, it acted like a cultural battering ram. It just smashed those walls down, forcing mainstream radio and MTV to open their doors.
And this quote from Time magazine back in '84, it just nails the feeling at the time. The music business was actually in a huge slump, and he was seen as this one-man rescue team. The really crucial thing here is his ability to bring everyone together, audiences of all backgrounds, all colors. So his success wasn't just his success, it lifted up the entire industry and kicked the door wide open for so many other Black artists. But, breaking down barriers on the radio, that was really only half the story. He also completely changed the visual language of pop music, creating a world where what you heard and what you saw were completely intertwined. And that brings us to this really essential question. Before him, pop music was mostly something you listened to. After him, it became this whole visual spectacle. He didn't just make music videos, okay? He made short films. He turned these little promotional clips into must-see cinematic events. And just look at this timeline. The pace of this revolution, it's insane. This all happened in 1 year. In March, Beat It brings this incredible choreography to the streets. Then in May, 50 million people watch him do the moonwalk for the very first time. A move he didn't invent, sure, but he made it his own. And boom, it became a global obsession overnight. And then by December, the Thriller short film just completely rewrites the rulebook for what a music video could be. The speed of it all was just staggering. And listen to this from a former MTV exec. It really puts it all into perspective. Thriller didn't just raise the bar, it was the new bar. Before that, she says, a lot of videos were shockingly bad. Afterwards, it basically created an entire industry around making these mini movies. The whole game changed, instantly and forever. Okay, so this visual revolution we're talking about, that was the engine that powered his global appeal, building this international presence that was, well, it was just completely unprecedented. He wasn't just a star in America. He became the world's first truly modern global pop icon. Let's go back to those numbers for a second because they are just wild. The premiere of the black or white video, 500 million people watching at the same time. His Super Bowl halftime show, 1.3 billion. Even his public memorial service drew an estimated 2.5 billion people. These aren't just statistics, right? These are shared global moments. Billions of people all watching the same person at the same time. And his impact went way beyond entertainment. It got personal, it even got political. Picture this, 1988. He's performing in West Berlin, right next to the Berlin Wall. His concert is so loud that fans on the East German side gather just to listen. And the Stasi, the secret police, were actually worried his music would spark a rebellion. And then he points to the wall and says, "This is for all the fans over there." That's not just a concert, that's a major cultural moment at the height of the Cold War. A few years later, he tours Africa. When he gets to Gabon, he drew a crowd of over 100,000 people. To put that in perspective, that was reportedly more than who showed up for Nelson Mandela. People described it as spiritual bedlam. He was even crowned a king by the Agni people in the Ivory Coast. It just shows this deep, deep connection that went way beyond just pop music. Then you have a place like post-communist Romania, where he's greeted like he's a world leader. He's meeting with the president, and he donates all the money from his huge concert to the country's orphans who were in these terrible conditions. This kind of thing, it really set a new blueprint for what celebrity philanthropy could look like on a global scale. But, and this is a big but, all of this global adoration was happening at the same time as some intense, intense public scrutiny and controversy. So for this last part, we really need to look at the complex and often polarizing legacy of the man in the mirror himself. So this really frames the two polar opposite perceptions of Michael Jackson, and they're both so difficult to reconcile. On the one hand, you have the Muse, this symbol of Black excellence and an inspiration to artists everywhere. But on the other hand, you had Wacko Jacko, a creation of the tabloids that he hated, fueled by sensationalism, his changing looks, and some deeply serious controversies. This included accusations of anti-Semitism in his lyrics, and of course, the persisting allegations of child abuse. And it's just crucial to understand that both of these narratives, the Muse and the controversy, they are both permanently woven into the fabric of his cultural impact. But for all the complexity of his personal life, his artistic influence is just undeniable. I mean, the breadth of his legacy is just staggering. You see his DNA everywhere. In K-pop giants like BTS, in pop iconoclasts like Lady Gaga, in hip-hop legends like Kendrick Lamar, and even indie artists like Sufjan Stevens. The list of musicians who say he was a primary influence is just enormous, and it cuts across every genre you can think of. And all of this leaves us with one final, and I think really fascinating question to chew on. Michael Jackson's fame was built in a world of monoculture, a world where everyone watched the same 3 TV channels and listened to the same radio stations. So in our world today, which is so fragmented with streaming and social media and a million different choices, could we ever see another single person capture the entire world's attention like that again? Is a superstar on that scale even possible anymore? It's a heck of a question to think about.